Hello comic fans, here's Earl Grey. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite cartoonists of all time. Again, like José Munoz, he's an Argentinian, Alberto Breccia. I mean, he was born in Uruguay, in Montevideo, but soon as a child he and his family moved to Argentina, so I guess it's correct to say that he's an Argentinian artist. This is a more recent publication by Fantagraphics, who published almost each of these books in the meantime, has published in the meantime. The next stuff that they will put out is a biography of Che Guevara. But here you can see all the German editions of the Fantagraphics one. Here I have Dracula, an old German version of that said book here, and I will do a comparison later on. And what I do as well today is go in detail through Mort, Cinder, again available by Fantagraphics in a, I guess, lush edition. As it is with Perramus and maybe Perramus, it's a three-part series, at least it was published in 3 parts here by the German Carlsen Verlag. This, if you ask me if which is my favorite Breccia work, then it has to be this here, because here he is at his peak of experimentation, and the social commentary here is very strong. It's really set in Latin America and deals with all these political and social injustice under a dictatorship, and what this means for one human being. But this will be stuff for a later video. I talked about it, I guess, in my pretty early video about Argentinian cartoonists. So if you want to have a bit closer peek into that one. Eternauta 1969 is Alberto Breccia's take on that old classic Argentinian comic by Hector Germán Osterheld and Francisco Solana Lopez, who originally drew the story. And I would say I still would prefer a Lopez version, because it just takes some pages more than Breccia used here to really explore this horrific post-apocalyptic world. Even though if you are more in for adventurous, experimental art like Breccia delivers here, you're totally in for a treat. But again, this will be discussed in a later video. Same with this Lovecraft book by Breccia, in which he illustrates and tells some Lovecraft stories. I took a peek into, and more than just a peek, in my video with comics about Lovecraft stories. Now we go to Mort, Cinder and Dracula. Mort, Cinder was more or less, I guess, his breakthrough in comics, Alberto Breccia's breakthrough. It is a cycle of stories written by Hector Osterheld, Hector Germán Osterheld, the same guy who wrote Eternauta. And it's about this guy, a man who lived way in earlier times, and he can't be killed. He can't. He always resurrects and has experienced it all, and is now chased by these guys with lead eyes, with this gruesome stare there. And he found a new friend in Ezra Winston, an antiquarian. This old guy here. I mean, this was drawn when Alberto Breccia looked much younger, but I feel he looks a bit like Alberto Breccia in his older days here. Maybe a bit. Just the wrinkles. And Alberto Breccia is very great in wrinkles and in composition. And look, just like here, our main hero tunnels through the legs of that villain there. Before meeting this undead Mort Cinder guy, Ezra Winston is confronted with some, unnamed horror or some mysterious things like the spider-like amulet. He always sees the spider amulet everywhere, and for instance here in the glasses of that guy, which gives him the creeps, which is pretty understandable. So he flees. And look at the use of black and white on these pages here. I mean, he's really the master of black and white, which was the reason why it pretty much surprised me that there is some book like Dracula in existence. Anyhow, but to Dracula later. And he winds up on the table, on the surgeon table of this creepy dude here. And there are some pictures on the wall and some Lovecraftian undertones, I feel. Maybe just because I read so much Lovecraft stuff in the meantime. But there's really some... That doesn't happen too much on this panel here, but it's really chilling because Ezra Winston lies there paralyzed on the table, and he talks about the tiny tender fingers of that surgeon. So it's almost as he watches a movie. So the text of Osterheld really has its strong points. That was a bit surprising when rereading the stuff here, because initially I found the text a bit tiresome and maybe just too much. I was there in for Alberto Breccia's art and found the way of storytelling through real huge blocks of text a bit old-fashioned and bogged me a bit down. But rereading it, it really totally makes sense to tell this in this way here. And you can still indulge in Alberto Breccia's wonderful interplay of black and white here. Maybe Alberto Breccia is not your favorite cartoonist, or one of your favorite cartoonists, if you're always in there for the rule that panels have to be clear. There has to be a certain clarity about it, because he really likes to obscure sometimes what happens under a chaos of brush strokes and imprints and experimentation. Over there we have our guy here, and it makes sense because he's there in a swamp and he's dirty. He was he almost vanished into the mud there, and then out of the mud our Mort Cinder guy reappears. As I said it, he can't die. Yeah, I really like when Alberto Breccia goes a bit wild with his experimentation and stuff like that, which is again very strong in Perramus. So again, my highest recommendation to check out Perramus as the first one of these Fantagraphics books. But Mort Cinder is very strong as well. Eventually, the creepy guys of that creepy neurosurgeon get our Ezra Winston, and he loses his consciousness, which is shown here in this abstract panel. I mean, abstraction is obviously one of the terms to describe Alberto Breccia's art. And when he regains consciousness, he sees this doctor, this fake doctor, through these lights here, and then he has him in all his weird glory there. The last short story in the first part of Mort Cinder brings our uneven couple into World War I. Here we have the transitioning happening in this panel here, which is very rich at Alberto Breccia's typical kind of stuff, using the ink, splatters and blots and what have you. And then we are there in World War I, right amidst the, in quotes, action. But there's obviously no glorification of the war going on here or something like that. But we have, yeah, more than words, this fantastic panel here. All these explosions, graphic explosions happening there, and here there's a dead body of a soldier. Just perfect, I guess, in its simplicity and its precision. So, now to Mort Cinder, the second volume. Here, these were printed as soft covers here by the German Carlsen Verlag in, let's look, beginning of the 90s, 1992. So here we have, a story that reveals to us that Mort Cinder was there at when the Tower of Babel was erected. Our Ezra Winston examines some old stone, and Mort Cinder remembers that he has seen the stuff here because it is, the stone is made out of or burnt out of the green mud from the river Euphrat. So, yeah, and it was used for building this tower. And here he is, Mort Cinder, and he was a young dude way back then, even though he looks just like he looks throughout the story. But he was eager to get this tower erected because he wanted to see this happening, even though he was one of the abused slaves here. But there's obviously something more to it, because in a secret lair beneath the Tower of Babel, a rocket ship was built. So, just that you know. But maybe drawing text stuff was never the main focus or strength of Alberto Breccia, so this falls a bit flat, even though the mere idea of the Tower of Babel just being some kind of rocket silo, rocket station is pretty nice. Yeah, and here you can see some proof of Mort Cinder being there when the Tower of Babel was built. Well, the next story in that story cycle is something different in terms of the subject matter, because our Mort Cinder is now a prisoner, centuries later, of course. And that setting is a good reason for Alberto Breccia to showcase all his amazing qualities and abilities in using black and white and zipper tone and all that stuff. There's insurgents, or a revolt going on here amongst the prisoners, even though Mort Cinder is constantly some kind of hero. He's there where the poor ones, where the prisoners, where the social outruled ones, and so on. but he's on the good side. He's on the moral. He's our moral hero, if you will. Yeah, but look at the use of black and white, and you have really feel how threatening these revolting prisoners are. You can't see their faces. It's just swallowed up by this black there, and the metal of the cages of the prison are not really shown. They're just these white lines there. And again, the next story leads us back to Ezra Winston's antiquarian shop, and he got this window here, an old Latin American / Christian antique window, stained window, even though we can't see the colors. Maybe this would be an exception, and it would be pretty good to have some colors here. On the other hand, no, because this interplay of light and shadow here is exceptionally fantastic. There's something mysterious about that window, and it has some influence on that old guy. Look at this panel here. I mean, it has all the signature experimentation and rough brush strokes of Alberto Breccia, and is still so precise. Look at the reflection of the window and the glasses of that guy. I mean, it can't become better than that, in my opinion. And this theme here, the reflection in the glasses, is continued. So you have a slight peek in what's going on in his brain. So here we have some kind of murders scene in favor of the gods that happened centuries or ago in Latin America. So that's what he is now wants to do, to kill somebody because of the light. Yeah, that's a bit silly, of course, but the way the story is told is really dark. And a part of the darkness in these stories is maybe explained because in that time Alberto Breccia's wife died. She was sick, and so it was kind of a struggle for him to survive, and for her to survive, and for him to get money through comics and whatnot. So maybe that explains the dark undertones of Mort Cinder a bit. But that's just hobby Freudian rambling, I guess. Mort Cinder is a pretty good MacGuffin, if you will, for all kinds of stories, because with such a character that was literally almost in every time, present in every time and everywhere, you can tell every kind of story. Like here, he was a hireling on a slave ship, and is kicked into the water by the slave traders, and he has to survive together with the slave here, and they help each other in to survive and hang on that piece of wood there, the only thing that helps them to survive, even though again Mort Cinder can't die really. But there they are, amidst the ocean, just two tiny pieces of flesh hanging on that wood, which becomes heavier and heavier because it soaks water. So there you had a very good use of white on that panel here, and here we have other examples of using black by Alberto Breccia. yeah, for me, Alberto Breccia is just the master of black and white. So I was pretty surprised when I figured out just recently that this comic was around for decades now and published by the pretty well-known publisher Carlsen in his series Carlsen Looks over here. Went totally under my radar for reasons, and yeah, I got this and was really surprised to experience some other side of Alberto Breccia. Here he went a bit wild with the colors, and it's a series of paintings almost, and which doesn't always really add up to sequel storytelling. It's even though we have this Dracula character over there, and there's a story going on always. Again, it's a cycle of stories, but these are really simple stories. I mean, you can summarize each of them in one or two sentences. For an instance, the first one here is about this Superman guy saving some damsel in distress from Dracula and getting beaten in the end because our damsel in distress has become a vampire in the meantime as well. So, bang, that's it. I mean, I could see these stories just for the story content of it as one-pagers in Mad Magazine, maybe drawn by Sergio Aragones or Don Martin. So that would have done the trick as well. But of course you have these beautiful Alberto Breccia paintings, and that's okay, in my opinion, of course. And here we have Love Struck. No, that's not the love story. That's just Dracula. Sorry if I'm spoiling the hell out of this book here, but as I said, the story content is here really not the reason why you should get a version of Dracula. But yeah, the art. And if this kind of art is not your taste, then yeah, check out the other Alberto Breccia stuff. I mean, you have to have Perramus, but if you really have to have Dracula, I don't know. Even though it's beautiful. But this story-wise, it's really just Dracula going to the dentist and after later on losing his teeth or his dentals in one of his victims. So, yeah, as I said, I spoil the heck out of it here. But there you have it. So, haven't seen that one, to be honest with you. I mean, it's, yeah, always something new to explore here. And that is a story here of Dracula being in love. And this has really a nice ending, even though, again, it's kind of a one-note joke to it. If you see the end, I mean, you've been warned, I guess, accordingly. So Dracula is so in love that he even gives his own blood to her. So it's the other way around, because she died or was so sick that she needed blood, and Dracula gives it to her. The most interesting story here is, if it is a story, is I Am Legion, because this really plays out the trope that maybe was the reason for Alberto Breccia to deal with the Dracula myth in the first place. Because he lived, this was created at the end of the Argentinian dictatorship, and it came out 1980 or so. So, yeah, with the message, if you will, that humans can be the meanest vampires of them all. And that's what our Dracula here experiences. He sees the world and there's, with all these injustices and these crazy people that are just there for violence and corruption and torturing people and killing people. So that he almost becomes a Jesus-like figure with these stigmas on his hands, and flees into the lap of the church in the end. So this is maybe, or for sure, the strongest and story of them all. Maybe not the most satisfying or enjoyable story, but here you can really feel the reason why Alberto Breccia did this kind of stuff. And the last one here is a fun one. Our vampire follows Edgar Allan Poe, who got drunk, or who gets drunk there, and so his blood is has a pretty high percentage as well, which has its ramifications on Dracula. So, yeah, that's the old German version from, again, I guess this is beginning of the 90s as well, from 1994. And the cover, to be honest with you, is not the best cover of them all, so Fantagraphics really wins in that regard. This cover here is, the design of the book is much more convincing. But I really have some gripes when I compare these two books here with each other. The first difference is that the Fantagraphics book, which is this one here, is a bit smaller than the German one, but just a tiny bit. So this is not a big problem, I guess. But the biggest problem is that the colors in my old book here look so much brighter than in the new one here. Just look for yourself here. The Fantagraphics version looks a bit dimmer, even though I like the paper here for its haptic quality a bit more than the old, more slicker paper here. But you can't deny that the colors, look at this panel here for an example. Even though the yellow is a bit more saturated there, but overall the old book is much clearer here. And there are lots of dark parts in the panels, obviously, and you can see in the older version still the structure of the painting, of the original painting of Alberto Breccia, and the brush strokes, etc. And you can't see that really in the new one here. This bugs me a lot, I guess. I mean, you should think that the production qualities have improved in the meantime, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So I really, for those of you who are really, really, really into Breccia, or just want to save some money, I would recommend to hunt down this older book here, by Carlsen Lux, the German version. Since this is a silent comic, shouldn't bother you that there is some blurb in the back in German or so, because the comic is, yeah, what it is, exactly what it is in the Fantagraphics book, but better reproduced, and you can get this stuff here for €5 or so, while the book here clocks in at €20. which is a proper price for this kind of book, but yeah. One bonus the Fantagraphics book has and the old book doesn't, so that's the reason why I'm still glad that I got the Fantagraphics book, is the back material with sketches, and you can see here and compare Breccia sketches, pretty loose sketches, with the finished panels over there. So that's obviously fantastic. I mean, and a really feast for your eye. And some of them are really just almost sketches of sketches, especially of this panel here, and you can see his loose pencil lines, but the looser it gets, the more interesting it becomes for me. And here even some color studies for Dracula guy. And some text about the old stuff by Daniele Prolli. So, however, this was, I guess, again, one of the series that I start, and sometimes I will finish them, or at least continue them. This time about Alberto Breccia. Thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.